Enkomo. Now, many the Honorable Yusuf Suleimana, Member of Parliament for Bole Bamboy and a member of the Public Accounts Committee, Menino Eni Enkomo. Honorable, if you can hear me, good morning. Thank you so much for your time. This is Kessben.
Mr. Speaker, good morning. How are you doing this morning?
I'm great, Honorable. How about you?
I'm also doing well.
Very well. We are grateful to the Most High for granting us life. Yes. Now, it's very right for me to wish you in advance a very end of year, successful one for that matter. I know Parliament will be rising next week somewhere around.
Sure.
Okay. So I'm grateful for that again, once more time. Now, the question I put has to do with the work you have done as a committee on the Public Accounts Committee for the last few months. You've sat to scrutinize the 2021 Auditor General's report to have a very good at the irregularities and then how people were equally going to respond to queries that were issued to them. Now, it has come to our notice that about 17 billion Ghana cedis has been lost out of these same irregularities. And yesterday, the Honorable Chairman Sabonsu, Majority Leader, had to raise concerns about this particular development. First off, let me listen to you on the work you've done so far as a committee.
Yes, so the Public Accounts Committee, by law and by our standing orders, is chaired by the minority side. So our chairman is Honorable James Kuliche Aveji. Now, what we have done is to interrogate all the district assemblies in terms of their internal generated funds. Normally, the public accounts, the Auditor General will bring all the reports to Parliament, and by law, Parliament, for that matter, the Speaker will refer them to us. Now, we have one of them that talks about the internal generated funds. There's one that will talk about the common fund that is sent to the district assemblies. There's one report that will talk about agencies such as Senate, such as SIC, and all of that, all the agencies that are under the government. And so you have to look at these reports individually by inviting all those who have been cited in the reports. And normally, the Auditor General's report is captured in this way. First of all, they will identify the breach that the organization or the District Assembly has committed. And then they will state the issue as they have identified it. And then they give audience to the organization to respond.
Okay.
It is only when they fail to respond within the stipulated time that this is captured in the Auditor General's report and forwarded to us. And so we now call them to come and respond. And some of the irregularities that we have seen relates to contract irregularities, some are cash irregularities, some are procurement irregularities, and what have you. And so we interrogate them one after the other, and then we are able to generate a report and submit the report to Parliament for a debate. And then our recommendations are always captured in the various reports that we submit to the plenary. Now, what the majority leader alluded to is the fact that constitutionally, Parliament is supposed to form or establish a committee. Anytime we submit the report to Parliament and is debated, Parliament has the right to form a committee to make follow-ups on the recommendations that the committee would have made. Over the years, this hasn't been happening, and is one of the weaknesses of Parliament. It is not as if the Public Accounts Committee is not doing its work. We have always done our work, and I can tell you, when I joined the committee, we realized that we had a backlog, and we have to sacrifice and do a lot of work to be able to catch up with time. And so as I speak to you, we have almost done with the outstanding reports, and we're going to be on time and ensure that any report that comes is not delayed. So the weakness is not coming from the Public Accounts Committee. The weakness is coming from Parliament in general, because we have the mandate by law to establish a committee that will do follow-ups anytime such reports are presented on the floor and debated. That hasn't happened, and so mostly the issues that we recommend that are supposed to be resolved, there's no follow-up, and that is why you keep seeing them reoccurring every year. And that was the concern that he raised, and I agree with him. My only disappointment is that after he raised the issue, we're not able to tell when we're going to establish the committee. And so we'll wait next year when we are discussing public accounts report, then we'll go back to the fact that there's a need for us to have a committee. The process is also that once a report is deliberated on the floor of Parliament and recommendations or the report is adopted, the clerk of Parliament is supposed to pick all the relevant places that he's supposed to pick and communicate same to the various agencies and ministries. Now, the majority leader also suggested that some of these issues, some of these recommendations can be carried out and submitted to his ministry, the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs. They can now forward this information to the various ministries and agencies, and then a follow-up to ensure that the right thing is done.
Very well. Now, quite elaborative enough, but the question again still remains and begs for answers. That the Public Accounts Committee has been doing this over years now. What has been the impact? Because the Public Accounts Committee, we know, does not have prosecutorial powers. Now, this is one of the weaknesses that people do see and concerns they do raise about the work done by your committee. Year in, year out, we come before the committee, people come with explanations and all of that. Yet, we are unable to punish based on the recommendations you give as a committee. Now, how do we have the faith in what you have done and submitted to the plenary that something new is going to come out of this?
Now, I can say that as a result of the sitting of the committee, we have been able to recover so much. And the trend, if you look at from 2017 up to date, the trend has been that the infractions are reducing. They are reducing because sometimes when we summon them, between the time that we write the letter to them and the time that they appear, some rush to ensure that they are able to recover the monies. And so they come to say that, yes, we have committed that crime, but we've been able to resolve the matter.
Yes, but this is where the problem is. So,
I'm coming to that.
Okay, yes, okay. Address that.
Some of us are of the opinion, and that's why earlier on I said to you that the Auditor General's report is designed in such a way that they identify the particular breach that the institution might have committed before they now make a recommendation. So you can have two legs or two issues here. One, how to recover the money, and two, how to punish those who would have committed a crime by breaching that law so that they don't repeat it. Now I'm saying that the sitting of Parliament Committee, the Public Accounts Committee, has impacted positively in terms of recoveries. But in terms of the breaches where people are not punished, is an issue. And that is why we're saying that it is important for a committee to be set up in Parliament that will be responsible for follow-ups. For instance, the committee took a decision last year that every procurement breach, we will recommend that the institution and the individuals involved be prosecuted. That is what we have done. It is not for the committee to go to court for those officers or institutions to be prosecuted. It is Parliament that will have to ensure that they write to the executives and suggest to them that the following people are supposed to be prosecuted. And then there's a need for us to also follow up and ensure that this thing is done. So the Auditor General Department, as well as the Attorney General Department, working together, can now ensure that these people are prosecuted. So it is not for Parliament to go to court and to prosecute them.
Yes, that was going to be my next question. What is the linkage between the Public Accounts Committee and then the Office of the Attorney General? Because based on your recommendation, I'm sure and very much aware that probably the AG will equally come to terms with some of this recommendation you give year in, year out.
Yes, so what I'm saying is that the work of the Public Accounts Committee ends with a presentation of a report on the floor of Parliament and same debated.
Okay.
But normally, we will have our recommendations, and we are saying that the recommendations are supposed to be communicated to the executive, and the executive are supposed to work hand in hand with the Auditor General Department for those supposed to be prosecuted. The blame can also be shifted to the executive, whether it is the NDC regime or NPP regime. The records are that anytime these recommendations are communicated to the executives, especially the Attorney General Department, little is done to ensure that they are prosecuted. And that is why we think that there is a need for us to respect the article that says that Parliament should have a committee that will follow up and ensure that these things are done. And that is where we are today. Like I said, my worry is that, yes, we are aware of this constitutional requirement. We have not been able to trigger it. And now we are still talking about doing it, but we haven't done it. And one would have thought that the majority leader would have said that on this date or before this date, this House is supposed to have that committee in place. And so this is something some of us thought that Friday, tomorrow, if I'm in Parliament, I'm going to ask him to tell us when the committee will be established.
Very well. So we are grateful for that, for pushing for that committee to be established, because Ghanaians really want to know much about what you say on your recommendations and how the executive and Parliament as well are able to ensure that people are brought to justice out of these many irregularities they do commit. But again, what is there for the institutions for which these individuals are coming from? Because the institutions are headed by individuals and then persons appointed by the executive. So if they so pretend over some of these things, I mean, how are we also dealing with those people in there?
So it's all about leadership. Leadership from the presidency, leadership through the ministries, and leadership through chief directors. So if there's a breach, in fact, if I were in the position of the president, and if the president was committed to fighting corruption, what he would do is to have a desk at the presidency, okay, that will be responsible for ensuring that allegations of corruption are looked at and appropriate sanctions or recommendations put before him for action. And so if you have an office at the office of the president responsible for corruption, and the Auditor General submits a report to Parliament, Parliament debates it, and Parliament suggests that some people are supposed to be prosecuted, you, the president, working with your office, at the small office at your office, responsible for corruption-related matters, who will have to trigger the appropriate ministries and appropriate agencies to ensure that those people are punished. But because our leadership is not committed to the fight against corruption, they are not bothered. And I can tell you, if they have their way, they will even exonerate people who are cited in such reports. And we have seen it severally. You can talk about the case of WVO and Honorable Osafo Mafu. Clearly, it was an instance where there was some kind of presidential interference, leading to the fact that the man had to even go on leave when he was not supposed to go. Okay, and there's a court judgment that shows that what was done to him was not fair. Okay, so it boils down to leadership, and until we are able to get leaders who are committed to fighting corruption, it will take us centuries to get over it.
To get over it, that is a very quiet warring statement, because just as you said, you've done the level of work so far, but 17 or 19, I beg your pardon, 19 state institutions is costing the entire country 17 billion Ghana cedis. And then I'm very sure that we will sit down and watch for next year's report as well to come, and then we will debate. The Public Accounts Committee will sit, and then it will add up to the already existing ones for which we are unable to prosecute people. I think the Public Accounts Committee is doing its work per mandate given, but maybe you can equally recommend that some of the prosecutorial powers be granted, because this is how far we have come as a country, but it keeps piling up.
My brother, again, it's interesting that even if we have the prosecutorial role to play,
yes,
we're not going to do it ourselves. It has to be done through our court system. And I can tell you, look at the frustrations that the special prosecutor is going through. Look at the frustration that the man is going through, to the extent that he had to come out openly to talk. So we just have a problem in this country. People should be committed, people should be patriotic, and people should know that corruption is a canker that is into the fiber of all that we do in order that we are able to develop our country. And so if we allow it to permeate through the various stages of our developmental institutions and organizations, then you have a big problem. Look, some of the infractions are so annoying. Let me give you one example. You go to a district assembly and revenue collectors are there, let's say 5 of them.
Yes.
And within a year, their salary put together, let's say, will be around 300,000 Ghana cedis for the 5 of them. Now, within a year, the revenue that the 5 people would have collected will be less than 100,000 Ghana cedis. Are you getting me?
Yes, I'm getting you.
So you have been paid 300, 5 of you have been paid 500, let's say 300,000 Ghana cedis. But within the year, 5 of you, you've been able to collect only 100,000 Ghana cedis.
So there is a deficit of 200,000.
There's a deficit of 200,000 Ghana cedis. And the district assemblies, the district chief executives, the coordinating directors, and what have you, care less. They care less. Now, the committee has recommended to them that there's a need for us to set targets for each revenue collector in all the districts. And that if any of them is not able to achieve the target and is going to be paid more than what the person would have generated, then you will have to reduce the number. So if there were 5 and they are able to take 100,000 Ghana cedis, you have set targets for them, they're not able to meet the targets, then some of them will have to be reassigned so that there will be efficiency and effectiveness in revenue mobilization, and also ensuring that people don't take more than they're able to generate. Now, even though it is not a tax, but let me go a little bit academic. Adam Smith, in his concept of taxation, says that there must be the principle of economy. So the amount of money you are going to spend in collecting taxes or levies, okay, should not be more than what you receive. And so we have realized that most of the assemblies are breaching these simple principles, and so you better don't even employ them and you don't take the revenue, because what you are doing is that you are paying them more than they are working for. So these are some of the issues. And you have breaches in procurement, where
And this is something that keeps happening almost every year.
Yeah, so we have taken a decision that all the procurement breaches that we have cited, all of them should be prosecuted. And this is captured in our report, the various reports. Okay? So our expectation is that this will be communicated to the Attorney General's Department, and the Attorney General's Department will summon all these reports before the appropriate courts and prosecute them. Over the years, this has not been happening. And then we have also realized that, and we have to say it, we have also realized that sometimes the information is not communicated by the Clerk of Parliament to the appropriate institutions. In this case, the Attorney General's Department. So all these issues have to be looked at seriously.
Honorable, but your committee has been engaging enough. I really want to understand. Do we get the impression that people flouting the laws when it comes to procurement, is it a case that they do not understand the processes for which they are supposed to go through anytime they want to undertake procurement? Or there is nobody who really gives the legal advice as to how they can go about doing some of these things? Because having procurement breaches is something that we do see in the Auditor General's report year in, year out.
Yes, so if you ask me from where I sit, those that we have interrogated so far cannot convince me that they are not aware of the existence of the Public Procurement Act. And so I also believe that for somebody to occupy the various positions that they occupy and commit such crimes, when they are recruited, they wouldn't be taken through some kind of orientation. And I believe that if they were taken through any kind of orientation, given the kind of role that they are supposed to play, they would have been taken through the Procurement Act. And so for me, it's deliberate. And that is why we are asking them to go to court and tell the court that it wasn't deliberate and that it was a mistake. And whether or not the court will listen to them, that's their matter. For us, we think that they have breached the law, and we think that it's deliberate. And so we've referred all of them to go to court.
Yes, but one would also say that the inability of the agencies or the district assemblies to acquire the services of lawyers or legal practitioners to as well serve as advisors to those agencies and assemblies is equally becoming worrying, because an ordinary person who do not have an understanding of what the law requires of him or her may go ahead with some of these petty mistakes.
My brother, the Public Procurement Act is clear. It's not written in Latin. For instance, it is stated that when you want to buy items within a certain threshold,
yes,
you need 3 invoices from 3 different companies. That is when you are using price quotation. Okay? Now, what prevents you from taking the 3 invoices, even though I have a problem with the law itself?
Okay.
But what prevents you from taking the 3 invoices and doing your comparison to ensure that the one that will give you money, a value for money, is the one chosen? Why don't you do that? You go and they have just 1 invoice, and in some cases, they even give out money to people without documentation.
Yes, but Honorable, you would also come to terms with the fact that in this country, most of our public servants are much more interested in outsourcing contracts to individuals that they feel they know. So sourcing has become something of the day. I mean, instead of opening tender for people to come in with their proposals and all, you will see one person taking all the decisions by himself and telling you that even though they did not open tender, but what they have received and the person they are awarding contracts to has the best in terms of their financial estimate or proposals. So
the law is clear. No single person can sit down and just select somebody and say that I'm using the single source approach. You have to go to the Public Procurement Authority. And and Section 40 of it, you have to satisfy the conditions there. And so if those conditions are not satisfied, even the Public Procurement Authority will not grant you the single source method to use. And so if you decide to sit in your office and to give a contract to your cronies or what have you, all in the name of single source, the law will catch up with you. And once the law catch up with you, the appropriate place for you to go and answer questions is the courtroom. And that is why we have decided that those who have breached Procurement Act, straightforward,
must
should
be
be referred to court. Unfortunately, since last 3 years we started doing this, we have never heard that any of them has been hauled to the courts. And that's our concern.
Very well. Very well. Honorable, before I let you go, I'm speaking with the Honorable Yusuf Suleiman, a member of Parliament for Bole Bamboy, and then a member of the Public Accounts Committee as well, discussing the report submitted with the plenary and then what they recommend moving forward. Honorable, before I let you go, again, the Honorable Majority Leader raises concern about the attrition rate in Parliament and how Parliament is becoming very weak in terms of its mandate, especially at the committee level, where he tells you that a lot of the committees are unable to scrutinize this policies and programs and budget estimates coming from these agencies. For that reason, they are left to do whatever they are supposed to do. But if we have a very strong parliament working at the level of the committees, I mean, some of these things can even be curtailed before it gets out of hand. How do you respond to this?
First of all, I disagree with
the
majority leader when he said that the committees are not doing a thorough work. I agree with him when it comes to the high attrition rate. That I agree with him. And I also agree with him that the more you stay in there, the more you become experienced,
exactly,
and the more you are equipped to be able to do a good job. But the blame is also coming from his office as well as the presidency,
okay,
or let's say government. Why do I say so? As I speak to you, the levels are in a few days to rise, okay? The budget was approved last week. We are yet to receive budget estimates from the executive. Now you receive the budget estimates the very day that you are supposed to sit and take a decision on them. How are you going to do a thorough work and to scrutinize the budget very well?
I see.
We need time, get the estimates, do our homework, then we can make meaningful inputs and criticize or critique the budget very, very well. Now, let me give you an example. 3 days ago, we sat on the tourism, Minister of Tourism's estimates.
Okay.
And so I requested for some documents because they had spent some money, and I wanted to know how that money was expended. I wanted detailed breakdown because, for instance, some trips were undertaken, and we wanted to know how those trips were, I mean, the cost of the trips. They shouldn't just lump all and say that goods and services, this total amount of money was spent in the 2023 budget.
I see.
We want to know the items on which, the money was expended. Now they are yet to bring it. But yesterday, as I spoke to you, that estimate was taken on the floor of Parliament. Now the question, the issue is that we are running out of time. If we don't do it by next week, many more estimates will be coming, and we'll not be able to finish. We'll not be able to pass the budget. And if we don't pass the budget, Ghanaians will not get salary and all of that. They now want to knock your head against Ghanaians who are supposed to take salary.
Once you want to ensure the right things are done.
Who is delaying the approval of the budget? Can you imagine this?
I see.
So if we are giving enough time, even if you have one experienced person in each committee, he'll be able to guide the rest. And that is why normally you appoint the chair people, the chairmen and chairwomen of committees to be experienced people. I have been on the Trade and Industry Committee since I entered Parliament. So I'm in my second term, and I've been on that committee until recently when they even promoted me to be the ranking. So you can't tell me that I'm not experienced enough to be able to scrutinize the budget.
You are very experienced
when it comes to time.
Okay, but you are very experienced based on your expressions and then the knowledge you are sharing with us this morning. But likewise, you may have some new entrants who do not even understand the procedures, let alone the budget figures in terms of estimate and all of that. Now, how well should we position Parliament in terms of the political parties, ensuring that certain experience and then certain persons with the rightful acquisition of knowledge when it comes to some of these things are kept in there and are not just allowed to go out of the chamber, or in the name of we went on primaries and then they lost the primaries. For that reason, they aren't coming back to Parliament. It brings to bear the shortfalls associated with Parliament's work.
Now, let me come. I'll first of all give you this answer before I come back to the question you asked me. Now, every year when a budget is read, there's always a 2-day workshop.
Yes.
And experts are brought to take us through the various components of the budget, okay? And all members of Parliament are supposed to be present and to take active participation in the budget workshop activities. I can assure you that most of the people they bring are experienced, and if you sit through, you should be able to analyze the budget and analyze it very well.
Okay.
So the issue of capacity building, yes, we need more of it, but at least for you to be able to analyze the budget, that workshop gives you that opportunity. Now, unless you are not interested in learning parliamentary business, what prevents you from contacting experienced people? When I came to Parliament in 2017, I had to get closer to 3 people.
Okay.
The member of Parliament Honorable Yeletre, I was always around him, asking him questions. When it comes to figures, I was always around Honorable Abedi, learning from him. Okay? And when it comes to legal and constitutional matters, I'm always going around Honorable Haruna Idrisu to ask him questions. And they are ready, and they were ready to teach me. Again, when it comes to standing orders, you contact Honorable Mutaka. And this is how some of us have learned, and today we appreciate what goes on the floor of Parliament. And so for me, it's not about, it's about your interest in learning. And so members of Parliament who are interested in learning to know the work of Parliament, I don't think they will find challenges.
So you will agree with me.
Experienced people on the other side that you can lay hands on for them to teach you. So that aspect, if you ask me, this is my opinion on it. Now, the issue of attrition, don't forget that this is a democracy we are running. I will wish that people are allowed to stay in Parliament for long so that they become experienced, and that experience will be impacted on the work of Parliament in order that we get quality and we get results. But, like I said, we are running a democracy. And let's don't forget, our constitution makes it, the arrangement we have today is that you go to your constituency and your constituents will nominate you or vote for you to come. So if you come and sit in Parliament alone and do all the work and forget of the people, when you get back to them, they will let you know that they have nominated you and they have brought you to Parliament. So every member of Parliament is supposed to play, if you ask me, 3 important roles, and you should be able to manage these 3 important roles effectively with the limited time that you have. 1, you must pay attention to your constituents. Whether they are NDC, whether they are MPP, all of them have elected you and brought you to Parliament. So you should be in touch with them and you should be able to respond to some of their concerns, even if you cannot resolve them. If you fail to do this, no party can impose you on the people, because the party will not be there to vote on that day. That is one. You must also ensure that you work to satisfy the interests of your political party, because it is the political party that would have introduced you to Electoral Commission. And so you owe them that responsibility. How to manage it is another issue. So you ensure that you manage the activities of your political party. For instance, if your political party is having a rally or is having some activities, you shouldn't exempt yourself and say that you are engaged in Parliament. You must have a way of managing all these things. And then finally, you must also make sure that the major role that you're supposed to play as a member of Parliament is to stay in Parliament and ensure that you scrutinize the budget, that you participate in the legislation process, that you participate in the monitoring aspect and all the functions that a member of Parliament is supposed to perform. So these three things, you have to be able to coordinate them. If you are not able to do them well, no party, and I mean no political party, can impose you on the people.
Very well. Honorable, I must be grateful for your time this morning. I appreciate it.